So in a 2 liter of Pepsi, there's 56 sugar cubes in that. 4-gram sugar cubes. That's 224 grams of sugar. So general recommendation, 15 to 30 grams of protein at each meal. It says slower intake, those more than 40 grams in one sitting are no more beneficial than recommended 15 to 30 grams at one time. So don't waste your money on excess amounts. And this all ties in with energy. And even the money aspect is energy, because that's elbow grease. That's work. So we consume more candy, or sugar anyway, marginally than we do protein for fuel. Way more than we should. Way more than is even safe or even considered safe. And it's all introduced to us when they get us while we're young, because all those youngins are going to grow up to be old ones. And if you get them while they're young, they're just going to grow up to be, you got them. Hence the evil nature behind Halloween. I understand what it is, Halloween's Eve. I understand all the stuff behind it, okay? Other than the deviance when it comes to the monetary system here. You're hooking people and stringing them along. Hence the term strung out or strung along, because you got something that they want. They got the means to produce it, and we want it. Supply and demand. We want to feel good, because it sucks being sheep. Complacent sheep at that. So you get all these sheep in a field and then just, golly, we are literally lambs to the slaughter by the very definition. So essentially, we are the field of sheep. You've been doping them up and leading them astray for so long, they're going to think crazy. They're going to start talking crazy. They're not going to really have any mind of their own. They're going to be like a bunch of children, frivolous and foolish, oblivious. And we exhibit all the traits of children because we even believe in stupid nonsense where we should just call it. Drop the mic. Throw the nonsense for what it is. It's nonsense. Move on. But we want to blame everything on crazy parallel universes and this and that. And I mean, it's just like everything else is the problem but us. But we're half the problem. We are half the problem. The other half is our leader, the person stringing us along. But we are only the problem if we can't realize this. See, we can either be a problem or a solution, or we can just go along with it. We can be complacent and just go along with it and just go along with it, bitching and moaning about it. But ultimately, we're only bitching and moaning about something we're letting go on when we could prevent it to it. We can prevent it, you know. So ultimately, it's a self-loathing kind of situation. Then, I mean, it's just a mind fuck. It's a whole mind fuck. We live in a complete mind fuck, and they use substances to make it possible. And then they analyze us like fucking sheep or lab rats with analysts, psychologists, psychiatrists, mental specialists, and they use how we're acting to be able to manipulate us some more. You know what I'm saying? Then once these sheep realize how they're manipulating us, and if they, let's say they know that the media's doing it, and they're like, oh, this is what they're doing to manipulate us in the media. They start pointing it out. Now that the people are in charge know that these sheep are looking, now they can use that same material, just altered a little bit, to fool them even more. Because now they know they're looking for it. And it makes it easier for them. So they have to make it hard to find first, but then once we find it, it's easier for them to be able to manipulate us, because now we're looking and we're trying to find these things that we think that are making it hard for us to find, but ultimately they're letting us know this stuff because they want us to know it. You bleed out some truth with a little bit of fiction, dope the people up, they don't know what the fuck's going on. And given what started all this conversation, it's a hard pill to swallow. But ultimately, it's the one that leads to reality.
A crazy scene outside a bar. The time, 1 a.m. The place, Daytona Beach.
Look at that little baby.
Watch as a woman wearing a thong bikini is seen on surveillance tape holding a baby, taking a swing at a woman, recording her on a cell phone. Her friend, also in a skimpy bikini, steps in front and attempts to block the crowd.
It's pretty scary. What can you do? You can't physically take the baby. You might harm it even more.
Perfectly healthy. Put him in a vat of water and he finds his way to safety every time.
5.2.
Now, look at this guy. What he's been eating is the equivalent of a North American diet, complete with all the fats and sugars we regularly consume. He doesn't know where to go. His brain has been damaged.
These rats were totally normal, and then they turned into demented animals. They don't remember their learning after even a day. And
That's where the Mandela effect comes from, because we've been doped up and sedated our whole fucking lives, and we misremember things. And instead of blaming ourselves, we have to blame it on some imaginary, crazy theory like, oh, two parallel universes are emerging, or two timelines are emerging, or something crazy, something that a child would think of. And that's the whole point. We're a bunch of fucking children. We want the government to treat us different. We're going to have to grow up, break away from all these chemical addictions that we have that they're supplying us with. That way we can get our minds right. And once we got our minds right, they're losing money and they realize that we've woke up. Bam, they will change. Believe that, because then they'll know they have something to fear. Right now, they know they don't have anything to fear. They're stringing us along. We want their dope, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to go along with it. We're going to allow them to abuse us because we want what they got, because they are our supplier. And it fucks us up just like this. Causes brain damage. And then they say, oh, well, the human brain is only shrinking because we can store things on the internet now. We don't need to remember it. No, the human brain is shrinking because we've domesticated sugar and been piling it down our throats, screwing our biochemistry up for so long, it's shrinking the fucking brain. It's called atrophy. It atrophies the brain. That's a proven fact. Dopamine atrophies the brain. Amphetamine and any kind of cane, any of these are stimulants, and they produce high amounts of dopamine in the brain, which causes memory loss and the memory to shrink, along with the physical anatomy of the brain. Now, I did some studying a couple years ago, and I linked Alzheimer's to dopamine levels that shrink the brain. They, on this...
And as the challenge gets harder and harder, they fail more and more, just like a human with Alzheimer's disease.
36.2.
In this lab, the belief now is that Alzheimer's is really diabetes of the brain, linked to insulin levels, which can be affected by too much sugar.
See, they're linking it to the insulin levels. But I'd already known it had to do with the dopamine, which tied to the sugar, which of course ties to the insulin. Sad to say, it's a hard pill to swallow, pardon the pun, but we are a nation of drug addicts, and it's a hard pill to swallow. We're being strung along and strung out and led astray.